And so you have now a whole bunch of people working for you. Whereas on council, typically most council members, you have maybe 2 or 3 executive assistants, whereas the mayor, you have executive assistants plus directors, and it's a tremendous undertaking. And I give credit to whoever's has been or currently is mayor. It is a tough job.
Do you feel that your being on council gives you or gives him also, a better handling of being the mayor? I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so. It does. I guess he pretty much can anticipate what may be our concerns, so he'll try to. It's a give and take, if you would like to call it that. He, proposes something to us. Of course, we're the gatekeepers with the public dollar, so he may propose funding for this, that, and everything else, and then it's up to us to, support it or not support it, amongst the many other decisions he has to make.
A gatekeeper for the public dollar. So he can say what he wants, but has less discretion than he doesn't have. Does he have executive order power like our president?
He may have in some areas, yeah. And actually, with the departments, council members cannot dictate to the directors what they want done. They can ask, but ultimately that call is the mayor. If I were to say to the department, the director for public works, fix that road. That's up to the mayor, but because of the checks and balances, we have more authority with their funding. So if, for example, a department doesn't do something that a council member or their community wanted done, then the council will certainly put the department or the mayor through a lot of scrutiny as to, okay, why didn't you get it done? We gave you money to do this, and that's where sometimes politics gets involved. So it's somewhat complicated, but
but it's.
Yeah.
Not
a give and take.
In our national headlines, we can't help but recognize no one ever understood what quid pro quo meant. And now we understand, hey, scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Yep.
Take it out of Latin, turn it into English.
Sure, exactly.
I can't imagine that kind of stuff doesn't happen kind of naturally. Mm-hmm. I guess if you're sitting in certain seats, you can't make promises or withhold funds and things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of our system of checks and balances. So we cannot dictate to the administration what we want done. We can ask, but then again, if the administration wants authorization for funding, that's where we have a little leverage too. We can say, well, if you want this X amount of dollars, what are you going to do with it? And then they have to justify it. So that's why every budget, when the department comes up and asks us for funds, we'll review the previous year. Okay, you're asking for more money, but we gave you this amount. What did you do with it? And if you didn't spend it, or you spent it elsewhere and didn't spend it like you're supposed to in one area, that's where they can come under a lot of scrutiny. And we can, council can just say, hey, you know what? We'll just either leave your funding level flat, or we maybe even reduce your funding. So
gotcha.
There's a lot of little pieces that go into this whole budgeting process with them.
I see.
A lot of jockeying back and forth.
Now, you've been on council. When did you first start on the council?
The year 2001, I took office.
Okay, so that's, let's call it 19
mm-hmm.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And your first council group,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like to describe it as a hawk kind of a group that was aggressively interested in construction and
mm-hmm.
getting a lot of things done in
mm-hmm.
a different way than now. It's like a very different public climate.
Very different. I find it a lot more transparent, and of course, as time has progressed, the issues have changed, and I think people's mindset. At the time when I first came on the council, it was all about tourism. Let's do whatever it takes, get the tourists here. Well, now here we are, 18, 19 years later. We have a lot of tourists, and maybe a little bit too much. And at the time, the type of tourists we're targeting was more the spenders, But now with Airbnbs and all of these short-term rentals, now you're bringing in tourists from all economic levels. And it's having an impact on our infrastructure, and we haven't kept up. That's the hard part. As Maui's grown, it's been hard to keep up with the infrastructure, our road system, and in my area, we've been waiting for how many years for the state to help us with the long-awaited permanent Paia bypass. We did a temporary fix back in, I think, 2007 or 8, the little mini bypass, but we've outgrown that. And the popularity of the North Shore, it's just, I'm hoping in my lifetime we get a permanent bypass.
It's already been drawn?
Well, we're currently in the process. I'm working with the community to see what we can do, maybe to have it more driven by the community rather than the state telling us what's best for us. That's my philosophy is this: maybe the county should take a more active role, and a lot of our stakeholders, working with the folks from Maui Tomorrow, Haiku Community Association, Paia Merchant Association, so to have it really being driven by the community, much like the Lahaina bypass, they had that bypass group. I'd like to see a model like that where we can kind of, drive it ourselves instead of having it more the state telling us this is what's better for you. Let's tell us what we want.
How is there such a thing as fast track something like that?
The bottom line is money
and years.
And
we're talking how much time? Couple of years easy.
Couple, if we're lucky.
It's that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because every time I go to that direction, you really have to time it, or you wait.
Well, we had an opportunity, I think, a couple of years ago, but the community was really split on the design. So the state, I guess, pulled the plug on that design that they had. So now it's back to the drawing board. So now with stakeholders in the community and elected officials like myself and Senator English and Representative DeCoit and even Representative Yamashita trying to put our heads together to see what's the best route that everybody can live with. But we need something.
You say it's
half a loaf is better than nothing.
Going on. The state, do we still get money?
My understanding is they've still got an appropriation out there for us, and the state, from what I heard, they're looking at taxing rental vehicles, adding maybe an additional $1 or $2 surcharge, so that'll help pay for
sort of like is paying for that rental facility at the airport.
Somewhat similar, from what I understand.
Same kind of a thing, a per unit charge to raise the money.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah. So,
have you enjoyed your seat? I mean, you are a reading fool. You got to be reading and running. Every time I see you, you're off ready to another meeting almost immediately. Is it a heavy schedule of work?
It's all a matter how the amount of work you want to put on yourself. As strange as it may sound, council members' job, it's classified as part-time by the county.
I still can't imagine.
There's no sick leave or vacation like your normal civil service job. So some council members in the past, and I think even our current mayor, he has a side business. So the council meets every other week normally. And during that off week, it's up to the member if they choose to stay in their office and meet with constituents during the off week or go off and do their other jobs. So, we've had council members that were in the hotel industry, the insurance industry, and I was a public school teacher, but I dedicated myself full-time to the job. But it's ironic now during my off week, there's a shortage. Well, you were a teacher too, Jason, right? A substitute teacher?
Oh, long ago, yeah.
I went back into substitute teaching. There's a big need in my area, and I wanted to just engage with the young folks. And so I do it maybe 1 or 2 days in my off weekend. I tell you, Jason, the kids have sure changed since I last taught. We didn't have all of these cell phones and social media stuff, Facebooks. It's quite a change. So it's an adjustment for me, but it's all good. It's all part of evolution and learning to adapt to change.
You ever ask those kids if they have any good ideas for you?
Yeah, I have. And you'd be surprised. I typically work with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they've got some interesting things to say. They do question a lot. I remember at that age, you'd never question authority, But these kids are questioning authority on a lot of things, and especially on the national level. So,
isn't that very funny? That's not that funny. Mm-hmm. I am not sure how anyone takes this, but our president, the big guy at the moment, Trump, for him to not be understanding or appreciating climate change the way the whole world is, I don't know if that trickles down here, because it seems like it is clearly on the minds of the local council, and I imagine the kids in school, we're all leaving them a world that is way, way out of balance. And I don't think we want to leave yet, because we haven't done our job to put things back on track toward getting things. What committee are you on here? You're on a number of committees. You had which one?
I had the Governance, Ethics, and Transparency Committee. We deal with the confirmations of boards and commission members, directors, and of course any type of legal issues, especially some very high-profile ones like the Lahaina injection well issue. So it's been a busy committee, and of course we're going to be dealing with proposed charter amendments coming up. So I got a full plate, but I really appreciate it. I enjoy it, and I asked for that committee, and I appreciate Chair King and the fellow members' support for giving me the chairmanship of that exciting committee.
You have such an easygoing style. I very much appreciate that. You're very approachable, and people can ask you a question really straight. You know, you're not one to deflect or defer.
I try, but you know, I guess that's part of the whole impetus as to why I ran years ago. I'd asked my area council member to look into a problem. Never got a phone call back, never got a letter or nothing. And I told my wife, I remember, I said, you know, if I ever decide to run out, I will never would conduct myself like that, because you're there to serve the people. You're not there to serve yourself. You're there to serve others. And I look at it as customer service. So I encourage folks, even if they're not in my district, if you can't get a hold of your council member, call me and we'll see what we can do to assist.
Right. Well, I could start off in issues and go in all kinds of different directions. You sit on numbers of committees, and those committees, let's see if I understand the process. In the committees is really where you decide which are the priorities in this area that need to go before the council. Can you guys make decisions there at that level in any way to move things along without having to go to a full council?
Yeah, I would say most of the issues are pretty much settled in committee, and by the time it gets to council, I don't want to use the term formality, but nothing is final until the vote is taken at council. But most issues, pretty much everybody will hold their vote, the vote that they took in committee. It usually carries over to council. Well, of course, I've seen instances where people have changed their votes in committees. They voted yes for something in committee, then when it came to council, they voted no, and vice versa. So it on occasion it does happen, but I would say 90% of the time, the votes that are taken in committee will generally carry over into the full council.
I see. Well, we've had some really exciting things going on this year. Things that the council is saying, we're going to show our power. And we're going to show our intention. Have you, you know, I keep going back to the fact that present Mayor Victorino was on council. When I spoke to one of the assistants to the council, they said housing's the big issue now. What kind of things can you do before it gets to a vote on council? For example, can you on council declare an emergency to build tents and take an area of land and do things that has to be the mayor?
Yeah, we could do a resolution encouraging the mayor to, you know, declare a state of emergency to the governor. But yeah, ultimately it will be the mayor who would have to declare an emergency. But we on the council can encourage him through resolution. Other ways we can, well, this is the number one issue, yeah. And so what I did when I was on the council previously, I initiated the Affordable Housing Fund through a charter amendment, and the public voted for it, and that became law. So that's a funding resource for housing there. And I also initiated the First Time Home Buyers Fund, which basically, if it's set up as a lottery system. If you get selected, you'll be eligible for I think it was at the time maybe a $20,000 down payment. That's the hardest part for folks, is coming up with that down to get into a house. And every little bit helps. The way I see it, we have a toolbox, and we need to put as many tools as we can into the box to address the housing issue. And then, of course, there's the homeless issue as well. I believe the department right now, they're doing the best they can with what they got. What council can do is provide them the resources, and combining with the state, we can help, to reduce the homeless issue. And you were at that meeting at the at the old Safeway?
At the old Safeway out in the parking lot.
Right. And
what I found interesting about that meeting was everyone around and said why they were there, but nothing really moves forward. I hear a lot of discussion on the surface, but I didn't hear any concrete someone saying, hey, what about declaring a state of emergency? What about taking a piece of land here? No discussion of that kind of stuff. Where does that happen?
Well, it's ironic you mentioned that, Jason. Earlier in the year, I did a a piece in the Maui News. I basically said it's a call to action to the mayor, basically telling the mayor, we've talked about this thing long enough, whether it be affordable housing or housing for the homeless. We've got the resources. We've got the county land. Let's start building now. Enough talk and enough of summits and everything else. And I'm hoping that my comments are used constructively, and it's not a personal attack on the administration. It's more just to it's like the old proverbial border collie nipping at the heels of the cattle, trying to keep the cattle going in the forward in the right direction.
Even at that meeting, Mayor Victorino, he mentioned, so he was trying to push everyone forward, but he didn't direct it anywhere. Well, and it was a very odd...
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned it, because at that meeting, too, he also put the council on notice that, you guys are going to help us. And I think the mayor forgot that during this past budget session, we added another $6 million. So we've been doing our part for the administration. So now we've given the administration the resources. Now take and run with it now.
So might he have an executive assistant in charge of housing?
I'm pretty sure he has one. I'm not sure who it is, but I would guess he'd have an EA overseeing housing matters.
And homelessness, this is just my opinion. That's all we are here. But homelessness is one issue, and a very serious issue. But affordable housing, we so desperately need housing supply.
Yeah. It's not even using the term affordable doesn't make sense anymore. It's just more about attainable, just getting some type of shelter here on Maui. Who would have dreamed the cost of housing would go this much? It's through the roof.
Extraordinary. I mean, and in the rental market, I don't have to tell you, the rental market is so tight. People are paying extraordinary amounts of money for a room and a house.
And you have landlords that are taking advantage of folks. They're just exploiting it. I mean, I understand people wanting to make a dollar, but my goodness, try not to go so extreme. And the sad part is if you have a tenant that complains or wants something fixed, I've heard their stories about landlords saying, okay, if you're going to complain too much, I got 10 other people waiting in line, so take it or leave it, So the tenant is left at a real disadvantage in this current time in Maui County. So,
and you guys did something by adding the ability for people to build more Ohana units. So
right, exactly.
Give us I think the public should hear it from you.
Yeah, I think, this is legislation that I initiated on my last term in 2010, and it wasn't fully addressed until I believe it was last term, I think. But we had started it, and it carried over into Councilmember Carroll's committee. But basically, the old law was you have to, in order to build an ohana, your lot size had to be at least 7,500 square feet. My proposal was to reduce the lot size to 6,000 so you could put an ohana. So we'll provide an opportunity for more people to put an ohana and shelter people, whether it be family or...
And what about a second ohana? How does that work? I thought it was recent that if you have a property, you can put 2 ohanas now at a certain size. Maybe I didn't understand it right, but I surely know if we're not increasing the footprint and people from scratch trying to build a house now in this climate of everything is super expensive, that existing rules were changed so that someone with so many square foot of property could build 2 separate ohanas and basically increase the square footage that were potentially available to have 2 rentals. I thought that was...
Yeah, maybe I didn't follow up.
I think that we're going to... I keep thinking that there's got to be more open public discussion. 3 minutes in front of the council. You end up seeing a lot of people outside of those 3-minute things, or not much?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, most people pretty much say what they have to say within that 3 minutes. And of course, depending, you have some committee chairs that are flexible, some that are very rigid, but you just have to gauge it and just see how the flow of discussion goes. And as long as, to me, the testifier is on topic, they go over by a few seconds.
Do you mostly get opinions, or like what they think of what you're doing, or do you, from the audience,
solutions?
Get?
A little of both. Some testifiers come up with some pretty good ideas, and I believe we've used some of their suggestions in our legislation or when formulating our own decisions, whether we vote for something or not. But yeah, we get a lot of opinions too, but that's people's right, to say what they feel. If they think we're doing a lousy job, by all means, tell us. And ultimately, our jobs are, hinge upon our performance, and if the public wants us back, they'll show it in the voting booth.
Yeah, I just think they need a little bit more information.
Sure.
I think I asked one of the assistants, maybe you know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the time to watch all the meetings and the committee meetings. But what happens there, someone said there's something called Granicus. What is Granicus?
Oh, yeah. That's, I didn't have this, it's basically we've been giving computers or tablets on our desk now. Back in the old days, we had to have these big binders full of paperwork. Granicus is a system where it's all electronic. It's all on your computer now. So it's a big paper
So let's say now, here's a meeting. We had a meeting of the XYZ committee, and it's been on Akaku television. Thank you for that kind of service. But who has time to watch all these meetings? It's like, is there anywhere someone's taking notes on what's going on where it can be in written outline form for quicker digestion? I haven't seen that, and I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
For example,
it's a good suggestion, yeah.
Well, I mean,
make it easier, more easier access.
Someone is doing it, and I don't know if there is there some report?
Yeah, there's we do have secretaries that take minutes, and of course you have the videotape of the meeting. So if for the sake of keeping accurate minutes, the secretary can go back and look at the videotape or the recording itself. They do record.
No, but that secretary, maybe that's the one we're talking about. If those notes can then be either cleaned up or as they are available, so someone can digest it quicker than hours and hours and hours.
Like more summarized minutes rather than verbatim minutes.
Right, summarized. But for example, testimony by Mr. or Mrs. X or Ms. X, and they propose this, and they say it can do that. The public, I mean, I'm wondering at what point. I always wondered, do the council know about these technologies? Like on this, for example, here, I was talking to Shane Sinensi and talking about water from air units, and that there's a green powerhouse that you can take bio waste, green waste, and turn it into power for 100 homes. And I always wonder if that was in a testimony, or if we're doing it here, where does it get kind of boiled down? When you go into an environmental committee meeting, has someone taken the things that were being offered and digested them down?
Sort of simplified it.
Usable?
I believe there were, I'm sure, a couple of instances. I can't just recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wonder, because like anything, we as public, and we're going to go to a break here in a minute, we as public, maybe I'll talk about it more when I come back, may have ideas to be able to help, but there's, besides a couple of minutes in front of the council or it going on some kind of paper to someone to review, it's like, where does that kind of get hashed out and penciled out and possible budgeted out? That's what I'm kind of wondering, because as public, for us to rely on the people on council to do it all, I think that's unreasonable.
Oh, no.
There's such a giant public that has many of the answers, or could conceive of answers, to then give help to the council. Like you say, we're all on the same team here. And I guess the same kind of thing, like then the council might recommend it to the mayor, or maybe the public could do that also. But that's why I'm asking it kind of this way, is I have ideas and wonder, what do I do with them? How do I get it out?
Well, I'll definitely give credit to the public on some of the legislation I spoke of earlier. Sure. For example, the charter amendment for the Affordable Housing Fund. We worked with people like Tom Blackburn Rodriguez, people who are very active in the housing community. The plastic bag legislation that I initiated, well, if it weren't for the help from the Sierra Club and Surfrider Foundation, organizations like that helped us craft a very good, sound legislation. So Yes, it's hard for any elected official to take on everything, because I don't think any man or woman individually has the answers to everything. So, which is important for our elected officials to engage with the public, so we can have legislation that's sound and it's fair. And a lot of the successful legislation is because of that interaction between the public and elected officials. So, I certainly agree with you on that point, Jason. So, and that's why I encourage a lot of public participation.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and also meeting people on your off week a little bit.
Oh yeah, exactly. You have to make time to talk story with people. Very simple.
And I know your time is extremely precious when that happens, but I've seen so many people talking about solutions out there that I never think, how do we get this in a non-combative way?
Exactly. As you used to say before, let's everybody put down your swords and let's work together. I never forgot that. That was a good one, Jason. That was a good one.
Well, it's really true. That's what this show is really intended to be about. Mm-hmm. To talk about subjects that are sometimes a little heated, mm-hmm. but we're not here to strike each other and call someone names.
Yeah, not personalize things. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I've seen a lot of that in Maui politics recently over the last several years. It's become very personal and people calling each other names, and you're not going to get anything done that way if you and Maui's still basically a small place, because you don't know who you're insulting, if you decide to go that route.
That's right. That's my cousin's brother and sister.
Exactly.
We're going to be back with Mike Molina, our present councilman, one of the 9, but clearly one of the most available of the council people.
Thank you. Accessible. Yeah.
Accessible and available, and you can. I really feel very comfortable when speaking with you, Mike. We're going to be back. We're going to start this sponsor run. The Neutral Zone with me, Jason Schwartz, would like to sincerely thank David Bryan for his support. David was founder and head of school at New Road School in Santa Monica, California, and is the board chair at the Ojai Foundation and on the board for Brave New Films. The Neutral Zone is heard live Mondays at 11 a.m. here on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui, and again on Saturdays at 7 a.m., as well as on TV and on MauiNeutralZone.com.
Get a jump on protecting Maui's coral reefs. No need to wait for Hawaii's new sunscreen law to go into effect. This is Archie Kalepa asking you to make the switch today to sunscreens that do not contain reef-harming oxybenzone or octanoxate. Find out about better choices at mauireefs.org/sunscreen. Sponsored with Aloha by Maui Nui Marine Resource Council, Maui Visitors Bureau, and the County of Maui Office of Economic Development.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish, Dad!
Oh, come on! This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
It's Saturday night at 8 and Sunday night at 9 on KAKU 88.5 FM. We experience dead air. Not that kind of dead air. We're talking Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead music for an entire hour. Saturday night at 8 and Sunday night at 9 with me, Corey Daniels, on KAKU 88.5 FM.
Hi, I'm Jason Schwartz, host of The Neutral Zone. KAKU is a listener-supported station. This means that all of the great programs you hear, like mine, are sponsored by you as well as our underwriters. If you would like to help keep the voice of Maui talking loud and clear, go to kakufm.org/donate today and give. And don't miss The Neutral Zone Mondays at 11 a.m. on 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. We are back. This is The Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. You can listen to this show again. It'll be up there by tonight, and all the other 60-something shows. MauiNeutralZone.com. You can find us on Facebook Live under KAKU FM, the voice of Maui, 88.5. You can also, if you just look in YouTube and you say, Jason Schwartz, Mike Molina, You'll see. I just looked up there myself. I saw our interviews from way back yonder.
Man, I had a heck of a lot more hair, and I was a lot lighter too. Those were the days. You know?
I had a similar hair program going on, but the lighter thing. Isn't it funny? As we get older, we eat the same amount. I don't know if we're not exercising, our body metabolism slows down.
I don't know. I looked in the mirror the other day, and I looked at my face, and I said, I don't know if my ears are getting bigger and my face is getting smaller, or what's going on here. You know, we're just going through these physical and life changes. But you know what? I'm just glad the good Lord gives me a chance to wake up every day to make fun of myself or make fun of others or whatever.
Well, you have a very, I really very much admire you. You've kept your very personal and social attitude and persona, even though you're in a thing. I mean, sometimes people in these seats take on a whole different air than you've ever seen them before.
Yeah, I've seen it and heard about it happening to some folks, but it's all a matter of how you handle it. The way I decided to handle this is just, it's not the end of the world if you have a bad day, and when you've been given by the grace of God this authority to serve as an elected official, I've always believed you serve the people. It's not about you serving yourself. And I've came from a political family, and I remember when my uncles and dad were alive, they always told me the day you get into office, you make sure you do what you're supposed to do, otherwise we're going to get you before the public gets you. So it's that old school European thought, you know.
Good one.
Yeah.
You know, we could talk about all kinds of subjects. I'm going to just bring one up because I know it's a year away, but there's a potential for charter amendment.
Yeah, good.
You kind of explore that.
Well, a couple of interesting ones that could potentially get on the ballot is the city manager format. And so I believe there's a number of folks that have been working on that.
The public has to understand. City manager means someone separate than the mayor that basically runs
the show. And the mayor's power is more ceremonial. So basically, the city, it's sort of like when you look at the country of England, you have the king and the queen, but then you have the prime minister. And so the way I see this current format would make the mayor's position more ceremonial, but the day-to-day decision-making rests with the city manager. And some folks who have questioned having a city manager say, well, it's going to cost more. If you want a good city manager, you're looking at potentially double the salary of the mayor.
So what would the mayor do in that case?
You know, that's a good question. I haven't fully studied this current proposal.
To me, is the city manager elected?
No, the city manager.
There you go. So a ceremonial mayor and council, they're all elected. But the city manager is not elected.
In the current model, as I understand it, the council would decide, would approve or disapprove them.
Everything in the whole.
Exactly. And the question, where is accountability too? You know, some who have argued against having the city manager format say, well, at least the public has a bigger say on who they want as their mayor or chief executive, whereas the city manager format, it's, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I see good in both proposals.
Could the mayor have a city manager type person?
As his managing director, maybe?
Right now, who's the managing director?
Sandy Boss.
So some can argue in every different way. Would he have different skill set than a city manager?
Again, it all depends on what you're looking for.
Same role.
Same role, basically. Yeah. I mean, you make the day-to-day decisions with the departments. You're the, I guess, the go-between the directors and the mayor. So, although it's interesting, I think it should, personally, I think it should be on the ballot. Let the public decide if they want to change, they want this current system changed. Folks who want to change are, maybe dissatisfied with the current system, and I guess it depends on who's the mayor, and that's why.
That's a very interesting situation. I mean, if we went to the new system, and the council, it's basically the council appointing the managing director as opposed to the mayor appointing the managing director. It's almost like...
Well, confirming or denying.
Well, I'm saying it's like... And it shifts the power to the council people.
It's a lot like what we're doing with the directors now. The mayor submits his nominee for whatever department, and we decide their fate.
Right.
So with the city manager format, I believe that's the same process.
Very muddy.
Yeah. Yeah,
very muddy.
So, but I think it's high time for. It's been discussed a number of times, but I'm okay with putting it on the ballot. Now, how I will vote, I'm not sure at that point, but I think the public deserves a chance to express their thoughts on it, and we'll go from there.
Well, in England, speaking of public and expressing thoughts like Brexit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone kind of gets the feeling there that the public decides, we want this. That happens a lot here. We want this, but then when it gets down to the realities of what it's doing, it changes the system so much that it creates a log jam.
Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences times 100 or 1,000. So I always wonder if the public, there's, that fun thing. When Jefferson we talk about our founding fathers, they gave a lot of power to people that were in control because they didn't trust the public's judgment. And now I almost feel like things myself. It's not that I'm an authority, but I recognize that the public is quick to get them upset and riled. For example, I'm going to give you a very specific example about the Wailuku thing. About the
Civic Center.
The Civic Center and the parking lot, and a lot of people talking about what's changing in there and how it's going to change the complexion of Wailuku. And meanwhile, I myself have been at meetings over 20 years talking about it, and public input, and lots of discussion. And here at the 11th hour, they're concerned about changing the look and feel of Wailuku, when Wailuku has been looking at this a long time and saying this is what we need. And now at the 11th hour, public opinion gets riled. And man, like you say, everyone's allowed their own opinion, but I've seen so much work going in to get to where we are now, to make these hard last decisions, knowing it would change the complexion, but the public's
at the last minute.
At the last minute, after all the time, energy, money spent, years, people's dedication to finding a really solid idea, plan.
Well,
I do that.
Yeah, and I think in this particular instance with the Wailuku Civic Center project, some have argued that they were misled or that they weren't in on the process early enough. So it's a lot of sometimes he said versus she said, but it is costly. I mean, I'm personally okay with the parking improvements and everything else, but as far as the Civic Center, that's where I guess I don't want to say the council split on it, but it's the prohibitive cost of the Civic Center. Some have argued, why do we want something so expensive in the town, and do we want to really totally change the face of Wailuku? Some are fearing that it could be another Kaka'ako, where eventually you're going to have homes or property values are just going to skyrocket in the area, and for those who are on limited means with their income, it could have an impact on them. So that's kind of the big fear out there too, along with but then again, from the other aspect, it's like it's a nice cleaning up the town and making it more presentable, if you will. I know Wailuku town at some years ago was really suffering from blight. It was really looking really run down. So this is still a work in progress, but I think the bottom line is the cost and what the neighboring residents are willing to accept. And I guess some property owners, business owners, are going to benefit from this. And the question is now, what are they going to give back? So, and of course, you've heard to talk about a hotel. Although the area is zoned for a hotel, the question is how big is this hotel going to be? And I've heard it's maybe 150 to 200 room hotel. And so, in the old days, I remember the old Wailuku Grand Hotel, and I think it was maybe 50-room hotel.
When Jonathan Starr bought that property many years ago, I'm sure that was part of his original plan, because he looked at what was going on and saw the potential, and he was working all these years on planning commission. He dots his I's, crosses his T's.
But I can agree on one thing. I mean, I think there is a need for a small boutique style hotel in the area for business travelers, people who come to the county building or state building to do some business. So, and it's already zoned now. The question is, I think they're looking at extending the height limit now too. So there's a lot of discussion and I guess, hard decision making that's going to have to be done.
When you talk about the prices of housing going up, things are just so completely out of control now. I don't know how development of Wailuku could anything specific about Wailuku. The prices aren't cheap there now.
Yeah, and what the question is, are you going to attract a lot of business in that area with the so-called improvements? Kahului is still a hub, the economic hub of Maui. Now, do you want big box type of stores, national franchise type stores in Wailuku town? Now, if not, then what small businesses can you bring in, and can they afford to pay the rents? Because once a private landowner makes all these improvements, the rents are going to be high. So can a small business afford it?
Can the businesses that are there even afford it now?
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Good point.
I mean, the things, like I said, I keep wondering why I don't hear the word emergency. This is a pretty crazy thing. I mean, I'm not sure, again, this is just personal. When I hear the numbers on how many homeless there are and whatever, I think there are more homeless than we're giving them.
Oh, yeah. I think the numbers we have are
way
not
low.
Accurate, way low. Yeah.
And I really also have challenge with the rental rates are so high.
Yeah. What I'm hoping we can do on the council is provide some tax breaks for landowners, property owners who are willing to keep their rents at a reasonable and affordable rate. Provide them some incentive. Instead of property owners doing short-term rentals, let's do long-term and reward those who are doing long-term rentals by providing them some property tax relief. So I'm hoping that's an upcoming discussion for us in County Rollins Fernandez Budget Committee. And she's part of that tier group that they're looking at restructuring our real property tax system to make it more equitable and fair. It's still a work in progress, and I know it made news the other day. Some people said there's still a lot of questions. At this point, the TIG committee, the investigative group made up of Keani, Alice Lee, and Tasha Kama, and Tamar Paulton, they've just established a framework. So nothing's etched in stone yet. It's just establishing a framework. And we have the option to go back taxing people at the old, using the current system we have. So nothing is fully etched in stone at this point, but, we welcome everyone's input. But, I've been told our real property tax rates are low compared to other jurisdictions.
I always am told that also, that people on the mainland pay really so much higher. And they often say, well, here in Hawaii, education is the state. And so that's the reason we've been able to keep it low.
Well, in a lot of jurisdictions on the mainland, why their property taxes are high, they're including school taxes, and I think probably their rubbish pickup, so that's why it may seem a little high. It's just that we've got our system is just divvied up a little more. We have our state taxes, which covers a payment for our schools, and then we have the why is this slipping my mind? Then we're paying our separate rubbish bills and sewer bills. So if you incorporated all that into one bill, then we'd have a big tax bill. But it's
we also don't have, again, wages. If you look at when you were on council the first time, which I could go back to 88, I look at the wages that people get for jobs, and they have nowhere near kept up with inflation.
The cost of inflation.
You remember the old thing, you should never spend more than 25% of your income on your housing. And now you have people that are spending 75% of their income.
And people have to live and survive, other than pouring everything into your rent or mortgage.
That's why I think of the word emergency all the time.
Yeah, and I think I look at this as a gentrification of society. It's going to be a bigger gap between the rich and the less fortunate, and eventually where Maui County could turn into a fantasy island where it's only the rich can live here.
Sort of like Lanai is.
Yeah, a good example.
Fantasy island.
Yeah. So.
Man,
but who would have thunk it? Huh? And the day's going to come where the average median house price in Maui County is going to be $1 million. I mean, it's Right now it's what, 750,000?
Well, 750,000. We could take a walk on the street and see how many people can afford a house here.
Yeah. I mean, I hope I never see that number ever, but it could happen.
Well, I always think about the idea of equity sharing, where whether it's the state or whether it's the county or whether it's the landowners, do equity sharing with the new buyer to make it affordable. The equity that the landowner then holds is still workable in the system for them as a resource to get more loans to create more of the things that we need. We have a lot of the resources in the land and in the people that are building to make things affordable. If it was an attitude that was adopted by some of the people that have these.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we do that? Do we have a open forum about that? Do we go to these landowners or go to A and B or go to I don't want to say the word A and B or whoever the landowners. It doesn't have to only be.
Well, I think we got to wave them a big carrot on the stick, give them an incentive, and that's the trick.
Why you're talking about
coming up with
the rules, to give them incentives,
right? Exactly. So that's our challenge, and which is why it's important for us as an elected official to engage with folks out there who you mentioned earlier have a lot of great ideas. And, the way I see it, it's a reciprocal process between the public and elected officials. We learn from each other, and we benefit if we all work together without demonizing each other.
Right. Lay down the sword.
Lay down the sword. You got it.
It was talking about that meeting that we were out there, that publicly, the attacks that were happening between the mayor. I mean, I was really taken aback a little bit. It was almost like his time to express and push at the council in a very awkward way. I almost thought it was for show, because that meeting, I came away with a feeling of nothing really got accomplished. There was talk at the end that everyone's going to go back and evaluate what they saw and heard here. But where does it surface again to take the action?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I believe it was initiated between the administration and Councilmember Kama to have the meeting at the site, which I commend them all for doing, which is good to get everybody out to the site and discuss. So now the ball is now in the administration's court. Okay, we've had the talk now. Okay, now we need to see some real action. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm hoping that the administration will continue to move forward. And whether it be myself or others being that border collie nipping at the heels of the herd to keep it going, we'll do what we got to do.
So if someone has ideas, do they go to the mayor and look for their special assistant, or rather than the council, because now it's really the mayor?
They can do both. Well, whichever is comfortable. I think the more proper, maybe proper is not the right word, but the better way first is contact the mayor's office with your ideas. And then if the mayor buys into it or the administration buys into it and they need funding, then that's where they can present it to the council for funding approval. But by all means, I would tell anyone out there, come to the council too if you like. I mean, don't limit yourself to just going to the mayor's office. And it's interesting because when I worked at the mayor's office, a lot of people would call the mayor's office, which they should. But some actually told me, "Am I not just supposed to call my council member?" I said, "No, you can call both." So I think it's incumbent upon ourselves to educate the public about how to do and what to do with regards to your concerns. So don't be afraid to call your council as well as the mayor's office. And sometimes I would get calls in the mayor's office because they call the council member's office and they never got a return call, so they call the mayor's office. And vice versa. It's happened the other way too. When I was on the council, I would get calls from a constituent saying, "I called the mayor's office, they never returned my calls. Oh, can you help me?" So, we help each other.
Right, and you were always available. You're really very open in how you're doing. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jason. Well, it's great working with citizens like you who, you have programs like this, helping to get the word out and educate the public. That's a real important component of democracy too, is what you as the constituent do in helping educate everyone with the whole process of government. And I try to instill that in my kids at the intermediate level. It can be a challenge, but it's fun. And kids got great ideas too.
Well, maybe you should start working in the high school. Those are going to be voters, that group.
Well,
I'm laughing, but there are so many kids that are they have all their opinions.
Oh, yeah. And as a teacher yourself, teacher makes an impact on kids,
Sure do.
What we all hope to do is make a positive impact. And, I try to tell my students that this is going to be, you're going to be future leaders. Some of you are going to be, where I sit or where some of our other folks sit, like the mayor. And it's important for you to engage. But the biggest thing I try to impress upon the kids, do it in a respectful way. And do away with the name calling. Just work together so we can achieve what we need to do. Our goals.
Let me ask you, maybe I hope I'm not stepping on too many toes. We got like 4 minutes. We're good.
My goodness, time is flying.
This thing about one attorney group.
Oh, yes.
Corporation counsel that serves the mayor and the council, and yet when they have differences, it's like, which direction does this council go?
Well, this is why we need a charter amendment for the public to decide. I think it's high time for the council to have their own attorneys, like using the issue of the Lahaina injection well as an example.
Yeah.
The council decided to drop the matter going before the Supreme Court, whereas the mayor disagreed, and he sent it forward. So there's this conflict, and Corporation Counsel, who is Corporation Counsel serving in this case? Are they serving the mayor's interests or the council's interests? They're supposed to represent both of our interests. So they're sort of stuck in a compromised position. So which is why I think the only way to really resolve this is we need to have our own attorney. And there's the interpretation of law. Now, according to Corporation Counsel, they said if the mayor and council is not in agreement, I guess the mayor resumes authority. So it's a tough one.
Now, what happens if there's a city manager? That's going to be a whole other... It's going to add layers of...
Oh, my goodness. I don't even want to think about that, Jason. Right now. Oh, yeah, it's just more.
We got about 2 minutes left. Look in your own crystal ball. Any issues that you specifically would like to, or things you want to say to the public?
Well, I think the most important thing is just get out there to vote in the next election. It's really disturbing to see every election year our voter turnouts are down. I think if you want to make some change or make a difference, get out there and vote. And I know some people say it doesn't make a difference. Well, some of the races on Oahu, for example, were decided by a couple of votes. So, folks can make a difference. But work respectfully with each other. And, I encourage you to talk to your government officials. And if you're not getting a response, let us know. If your area council member does not get back to you, call another council member. And call my office, whatever's on your mind. And some of the legislation I talked about with you earlier that we initiated was actually driven by the public first. They kind of planted a seed in me, and then I took the ball and ran with it. When I was a teacher, the old recycling center up by Kalama Intermediate, that was, I guess it was a student that brought that whole idea up, and another teacher. And so took it and ran with it, and we got a recycling center. It was all driven by the kids and parents, and then the mayor and the governor got involved with it. So it was just a great example of everybody putting their heads together.
It's amazing to say. We have 30 seconds left. I'm here with Mike Molina, President Sitting Councilman, doing a great job for us here in Maui.
Hey, thank you, Jason.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you guys out there for being here with us on the Neutral Zone. Make sure to go up there and check out this show again and all the other shows at MauiNeutralZone.com. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you here next week. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Councilman.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Pleasure
Great job.
having you here.
Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha. The Neutral Zone, with me, Jason Schwartz, would like to thank Maui Arts and Music Association, Dreammakers Foundation of Maui, for their support. Since 1991, with hundreds of television shows and their MauiArtsandMusic.com website, they have championed self-sustainability on Maui. The Neutral Zone is heard live Mondays at 11 a.m. and replayed Saturday at 7 a.m. on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui.